Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you are watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top stories of this hour. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy once again emphasized on a meeting with Russian counterpart. He said that he will meet President Vladimir Putin anywhere except Moscow. Meanwhile, Russia responded by naming Istanbul as preferred venue for potential talks. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas is going to address at the United Nations General Assembly virtually. The move comes amid tensions rise as President Donald Trump's administration barred him from traveling to New York, while Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to block statehood and far-right ministers pushed for West Bank annexation. Germany has said that it is open to an EU plan to free up to $235 billion in frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine, after reports by Politico has said that the funds would be replaced with the EU-backed bonds. The issue marks a shift for Berlin, which had previously raised legal concerns over fully seizing the Russian assets. EU climate chief Wopke Hoekstra has criticized China's new climate targets, calling its plan to cut 7 to 10% of economy-wide emissions by 2035 disappointing and insufficient to meet global goals. The EU further warned that China's immense pollution footprint makes achieving worldwide climate targets far more challenging. Taiwan is searching for 33 missing people after Super Typhoon Ragasa caused a burial lake to overflow, leaving 14 people dead and sweeping away a bridge. Many victims were too elderly to evacuate in time, raising questions over Taiwan's evacuation procedures as the government now studies ways to prevent similar disasters. Sweden and Poland held Operation Gotland Sentry, simulating rapid defense of the strategic island of Gotland, just 300 kilometers from Russia, to secure Baltic Sea supply routes and deter potential attacks, while military chiefs stressed the island's crucial role in NATO defense plans and regional security. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy was found guilty of criminal conspiracy but cleared of corruption charges in his Libya trial over alleged illegal campaign financing from Muammar Gaddafi. Prosecutors had sought a 7-year sentence, but the Paris court acquitted him on other counts, while Sarkozy insisted that this case is politically motivated. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has said that he is ready to step down after the war with Russia ends. Declaring his priority is to finish the war, President further emphasized that his focus is ending this conflict, not seeking another term in office. The United Nations General Assembly is currently underway in New York, marking its 80th session amid a critical moment for global diplomacy. On day 2 of the 80th UN General Assembly, leaders urged swift action on global challenges. Ukraine's President Zelenskyy called for real military aid against Russia, highlighting drones and AI in warfare. Syria's Bashar al-Assad demanded sanctions be fully lifted, while Iran's Pezeshkian denied nuclear ambitions and pledged support against Israeli aggression. The Dominican Republic and Kenya stressed backing for the UN mission in Haiti. On day 3 of the 80th UN General Assembly, world leaders continue debating urgent issues like the wars in Gaza and Ukraine, climate change, and UN Security Council reform. Discussions to continue surrounding Somalia, calling for international support against extremist groups. Ghana will be emphasizing its role in promoting peace and development. The Philippines will focus on sustainable development and the 2030 agenda. Now we are joined by correspondent Thomas Porteous. He's joining us live from New York. Thank you very much, Thomas, for joining us. Now, what more can you tell us from the venue in New York?
Oh, yes, Sima, you are certainly joining me from a rainy day in New York, but that has not stopped the floods of diplomats from peeling in from behind me. And as you've said, yes, it is the third day of that general debate, which is set to commence here in New York City at the General Assembly here at the United Nations. Now, on the matter in the general debate, everyone is looking at one session in particular, and of course, that is Palestine, the state of, recognized by over 150 countries of the UN, but notoriously not many of those most crucial G7 countries. Its leader, President Mahmoud Abbas, who's a leader of the Palestinian Liberation Movement, he is not present. The Trump administration and the US government did not give him his visas to get here. This is proved highly controversial. It's actually against the statute of the United Nations, where bilateral issues should not be withstanding when it comes to inviting people in order to discuss their issues to the United Nations. This is supposed to be a place where each state has their own voice, and that's why people praise the United Nations, and it gives those small countries a voice all to speak, which is what we are seeing today. However, Mahmoud Abbas today, he will speak by video link to the Assembly. We are expected to see protests like we even saw yesterday on the day Iranian President Pezeshkian was speaking there. However, it is supposed to be a huge day for the state of Palestine, of course, with just 2 days ago, G7 nations, along with many other traditional Israeli allies, recognizing the state of Palestine. And of course, that is not it. We have the European Union speaking today. Antonio Costa will be saying words, pushing the European agenda forward for the 27-country bloc, a bloc which was widely criticized by US President Donald Trump in that speech that opened the general debate after President Lula da Silva. Of course, we have then a flood of African countries amongst that, and that, of course, which is very important, which is Sudan, which has a huge humanitarian crisis and civil war currently occurring, which is entering its third year. That will also be discussed in front of the General Assembly as well. So a huge day here at the United Nations in New York. And as you can see behind me, you see the floods of diplomats coming in, and we can't show you this, but standing in front of me is NATO Secretary Mark Rutte. He's standing there in front for an interview. Unfortunately, we couldn't get him, but we will, of course, bring you all the updates as soon as we get them.
And Thomas, what more is happening today? What's on the agenda for today?
Well, yes, as I've said, the biggest moment, of course, will be that of Mahmoud Abbas speaking remotely, which is the first time which that has ever happened when it comes to the United Nations General Assembly. This raises huge questions over reform, which has been actually a huge topic here this year. There should be a huge time for celebrations. This should mark 80 years of when this institution was set up after the Second World War. However, that is not the case. There is calls here for reform. There is mass criticism when it comes to this institution, and looking forward is the perspective. There are, of course, Donald Trump criticized the United Nations when it came to him stopping wars. even the infrastructure of the building, of course, he criticized. We all saw his escalator stop when he got on it, and then later on his claims of this building behind me, even sabotaging his entire speech, which he claimed on Truth Social afterwards. So, of course, it is set to be a huge day, and we will, of course, bring you all the updates as we get them live here from New York.
And Thomas, what more is happening there? Do you see any protests happening as well?
Well, of course, there will be, as expected, pro-Palestinian protests. We're unsure if there is going to be counter-protests yet. Usually bunched with this is the Sudan protests as well. You often see the Sudanese flag flying alongside the Palestinian flag. So when Mahmoud Abbas speaks, there is most likely going to be a Palestinian protest coming through. However, what really is more likely to draw the crowds is tomorrow, when Benjamin Netanyahu is set to come here and speak, despite that ICC warrant, a body of this institution, against him. There are marches already planned for that. Of course, he is set to address many world leaders that have also have accused him and his government of perpetrating war crimes and perpetrating genocide, and so that is set to be the most that is expected to bring the most controversy, say the most drama and the most debate, of course.
With that, thank you very much, Thomas Porteous, for joining us all the way from New York and giving us updates. Now we move on to our next news. Russia has firmly rejected claims that it was involved in drone flights that forced the closure of Danish airports twice this week, calling the incidents a staged provocation. The Russian embassy in Denmark has also said that speculation about its involvement is absurd and unfounded. The latest drone sightings occurred yesterday night, leading to the temporary closure of Aalborg Airport, which is also used by the Danish armed forces. Meanwhile, the Justice Minister Peter Hummelgaard has reported similar drone activity over the southern cities of Esbjerg and Sounderberg, as well as the fighter wing Skirstrup Air Base, which is home to Danish F-16s. Additionally, authorities warn that such incidents are part of hybrid attacks aimed at creating fear and discord. These events follow Monday night closures at Copenhagen Airport and Oslo Airport in Norway, both located near busy shipping routes connecting the North Sea to the Baltic. Investigations are ongoing as Denmark seeks to understand the origin and motive behind the drone flights. Now for this discussion, we're joined by Professor Veselin Popovsky. He's a professor and vice dean at Jindal Global Law School. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us. Good to see you. Now, how legitimate is this Russia's rejection of involvement in the recent drone flights all over? And what is this Denmark's call for an investigation reflect about this escalating tensions between Europe and Russia?
Well, we still need to see that investigation, but Russia rejects everything. Russia said they rejected what they did in Poland, they rejected what they did in Romania, they rejected what they did in Estonia. Russia always rejects absolutely everything, and later investigations find that in 90% of those, it is Russia behind. So there is no doubt that suspicion go first and primarily on Russia, although, yes, it's still early, and even the Danish authorities are very careful, and they don't put any blame on Russia at the moment before the investigation is over. So we need to wait and see what happens in the next day. So nothing surprising. Russia rejects everything, but obviously the suspicions at this point cannot go anywhere else. It's not Germany, France, and Britain that will target the Danish airports, obviously.
And how,
Denmark is a NATO member. It is a part of an alliance. It has its partners, and obviously they will need to meet and to discuss how to strengthen the security of the airspace of all NATO countries.
And Professor, how might these drone incidents, particularly with the timing and proximity to busy shipping routes, be interpreted as part of a broader strategy of hybrid warfare aimed at destabilizing European countries?
Yes, they are destabilizing because the airports are shut down. I think 20,000 passengers are affected, mostly in the Copenhagen airport, which was closed for like 3 hours and few minutes. Well, not a major disruption, but still it is very, annoying and frustrating for passengers who cannot fly, who cannot go home on time, their flights are delayed. It's never easy to have those disruptions. And it is, by the way, very much the Russian strategy is to disrupt everything they can disrupt anywhere, mostly in the European countries. So yes, these are unfortunately tactics and strategies. Again, we don't know yet 100% of who did it. We need to wait and see, but it very much smells like another hybrid attack by Russia. Again, they may hire somebody else to do it. They can easily pay several thousands of dollars for some citizens of another country to do those. But ultimately, behind that, it looks like allegedly it's a Russian disruption again.
Right. Professor Popovsky, please stay with us, Lynn. Now we move on to our next news. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy will soon be imprisoned after he was sentenced to 5 years in jail by the court that found him guilty of criminal conspiracy over dealings with Libya. The sentence was harsher than many expected, and a first in modern French political history. Sarkozy, who was president between 2007 to 2012, will spend time in jail even if he appeals the ruling. Let's listen into what he has said.
La haine n'a donc décidément aucune limite. J'assumerai mes responsabilités. Je déférerai aux convocations de la justice. Et s'ils veulent absolument que je dorme en prison, je dormirai en prison. Mais la tête haute. Je suis innocent. Cette injustice est un scandale. Je ne m'accuserai pas de quelque chose que je n'ai pas fait. Naturellement, je ferai appel. Sans doute devrais-je comparaître les menottes aux mains devant la cour d'appel. Ceux qui me haïssent à ce point pensent m'humilier. Ce qu'ils ont humilié aujourd'hui, c'est la France.
Now we move on to our next news. The grieving father of Captain Sumit Subarwar has spoken out over the official investigation into the deadly crash of the Air India Flight 171 that occurred in June earlier this year. The pilot's father, Pushkar Raj Subarwal, claims that investigators from India's AAIB visited his home last month under the pretext of offering condolences, but implied his son was responsible for cutting fuel to the plane's engines after takeoff. The father has also described the initial investigation as procedurally improper and professionally indefensible. Additionally, he has called for an additional government investigation to preserve his son's dignity and ensure transparency. Meanwhile, the Federation of Indian Pilots has condemned the investigators' home visit, while India's Supreme Court is now reviewing a petition seeking an independent probe to safeguard truth and passenger safety. The Boeing 787 crash near Ahmedabad that has killed 241 people of the 242 people on board and 19 people on the ground. The preliminary report noted the fuel switches flipped almost simultaneously, but did not identify who was responsible. Now we move on to our next news. Super Typhoon Ragasa has caused severe damage across southern China and Hong Kong in Guangdong province. Powerful winds up to 145 kilometers per hour tore down trees, destroyed fences, and scattered debris. Hundreds of thousands are now cleaning up the afterstorm, which made landfall near Hailing Island on Wednesday. In Hong Kong, restaurants along the waterfront were all flooded with furniture and equipment washed away. Over 100 people were treated for injuries and more than 900 sought shelter. The storm disrupted nearly 1,000 flights and caused widespread power outages. Ragasa is the strongest typhoon to hit the region this year, with authorities allocating nearly $50 million for rescue efforts. Let's listen in.
交通就冇影響，但係咧就全地方都係好多樹葉樹枝，同埋我鄰居問我有冇感覺到大廈有昨天有搖晃。
We had like 10 tables to protect it, and there was a wall behind this shutter as well. So all the wave came from the sea, break the shutter, break the wall, and some of the tables, like big number, disappeared already. We don't see them. It got drafted somewhere, like including our doors on the other side over there.
The damage was mostly done by a surge of water that came from the sea, over the seawall, through the typhoon barrier, and was about 3 feet of water that entered the restaurant. So actually the restaurant was closed, locked up, and it was 1 or 2 or 3 surges of water that took all of our furniture and just threw it everywhere from all places. We found one of our tables in the next restaurant over. Some of our tables and chairs ended up down the road. But water went 3 feet all the way through the restaurant into the back of the kitchen.
This is all we have time for. We will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world.